Welcome to SuperCrowd Chicago, live in person at Columbia College Chicago and streaming live internationally on the E360 TV network and across social media. We are now kind of at an exciting spot in the program in that we are going to do the first of two panels today. We'll do one much later today, but we're going to jump into a great panel discussion here shortly that Florence is going to lead. Florence will be back on stage with us. Again, thank you very much, Florence. And she'll be joined by Dr. Kanan Van Williams, who is raising capital for Proactive Real Estate Group, Ishmael El Amin, who's raising capital for Piggyback Network, and his Reg CF campaign is live right now, and Samreen Arshad, who runs Samreen's Vanity. Am I saying that right, Samreen? Okay. We're thrilled. Let me just take 1 second. You know, we introduced Florence before. Remember, she's a really big deal. And I just recap and leave it at that. Really big deal. And then Dr. Kanan Van Williams, one of the things I love about Dr. Kanan is that one of his early projects was in Stockton, California, where I live now. So I feel a special connection with him. But Dr. Van Williams is an expert in social impact investing. He leads Proactive Realty Income Fund, focusing on affordable housing without gentrification or displacement. The fund invests in Class C and distressed B housing, supporting lower tier communities while ensuring sustainable returns and preserving investor capital through effective asset management. So he's going to make a great contribution to the discussion. Ish, thank you very much for showing up early today. I appreciate you being here early and staying all day. It's what a great contribution. Ish made breakfast for all of you, so be sure to thank him when you see him. With 20 years in corporate IT and electrical engineering degree from Princeton, he combines his South Side Chicago upbringing and Ivy League education. A father of four, he champions youth sports and education, ensuring every child has the opportunity to achieve greatness without barriers like transportation. Ish, I got to ask you afterward, you have to tell me if Shameless has any correlation to the real South Side. I confess I watched every episode twice. It's been like a college class for me. We'll talk later. Samreen Arshad is the owner of Samreen's Vanity, creates clean, vegan, cruelty-free cosmetics for all skin shades and gender expressions. With a business management degree from the University of Michigan, she combines her expertise in social media marketing to elevate South Asian heritage and empower authentic self-expression. Samreen's Vanity, celebrating the true you. Well, what a great panel discussion. Come on up, everybody. Florence, you're here at the podium. And let me just turn on all the microphones here.
Can't wait to hear their insights on the crowdfunding industry and all the things that they have done so far to be successful. I actually had in my notes to provide time for them to introduce themselves, but Devin did such a great job. We're just going to go straight into the informational portion of this panel. So the question that I have to all of you is to discuss why you considered crowdfunding to be a part of your fundraising strategy to start. So why is crowdfunding an important part of your fundraising strategy? Yes, go ahead. Ladies first.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. So Samreen's Vanity is a cosmetic line which is founded to elevate South Asian representation in the beauty space. So because of that reason, behind the cosmetic line is a mission which is far more important than the product. That's why we decided that we're going to go the crowdfunding route first, because we have customers who really care about the product and who've been the source behind our growth. So that was one of our biggest reasons.
So it sounds like, it sounds like you took a page from our first speaker's book to say, if you can market to investors and customers at the same time, you should do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like your community is your backbone of any product, any service, any business. So we're leveraging on that, and it's been great for us.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Ish. I'm gonna call you Ish.
Great question. So we sat there 5 years ago as we were starting the company, doing the technology build out. My co-founder and I, both technical founders, we were able to do a lot of the things that were required on the back end, but we knew we'd have to get customers at some point. And that customer acquisition part was going to require educating people on what we were building. Our platform, Piggyback Network, is different from what's out there on the market as far as transportation. We had a mind shift that we had to convey. We had to convince people that it's okay to put your child in someone else's car if you know them through going to the same school or going to the same sports activity or after school program. So we knew there'd be some type of interaction with the customer. And as we looked at ways of raising capital, we thought it would be killing two birds with one stone if we could also acquire customers on the investment side by doing that education piece, by teaching them about equity investing. We have a lot of people that are currently on our cap table from our first raise that had no idea that equity investment existed. We didn't know equity investment existed, prior to going to do some research. So we really wanted to shape the way that our customers look and our founders look as well.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So why is crowdfunding an important part of your strategy?
Crowdfunding is a very important part of our strategy. We're building on our previous success with the Procter Income Fund. Right now, we have a campaign testing the waters for a rancho property in Las Vegas, Nevada. At 1750, we developed the property directly across the street at 1735 North Rancho. And we wanted to allow smaller investors to be able to participate in the process. We do have another fund that's accredited investors. We've had a raise. We've returned a lot of capital since 2020 to investors, roughly 3.1 million. And so with this particular offering, we like to provide immediate housing. And so for this particular project, once we had the success with the first one across the street, I quickly realized after meeting our crowd person who raises for us, Bill Houston, an assistant who's educated us on the process, that this would be the fastest and quickest way to go. And also I do have my other person here who is our wholesaler, Andrew, for our main fund. So to democratize the process and also to make sure that we're able to get people in housing very quickly.
Thank you for those answers. And as you were answering, it came to me that it would be important to know the success you've had so far with crowdfunding. So can you share how much you've raised so far and how many investors you have? And not the security that you're selling right now, if anything, because we don't want to do that. But if you are currently raising, what platform are you raising on? So how much have you raised? How many investors so far? And what platform if you're currently raising?
So our raise is backed by Backstage Capital, founded by Alvin Hamilton. So that was just a great platform in itself. We are on WeFunder, and we have raised $165,000. I think between 25 to 24 investors, something like that. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thanks.
Our first raise, 2022, we raised $183,000 on Seed at the Table, and that was 150 investors. We're currently on WeFunder. We have about 119,000, and I believe that's 104 investors there.
For us, we have not raised on a crowdfunding platform yet. We're testing the waters. However, on our main fund that we're building success on, we've raised about $7.5 million there, and been able to deploy return capital to investors. As I was stated before, the deal that we have across the street that we completed was mostly self-funded and did have 2 investors in that one. So we're on Testing the Waters campaign that we've received. I'm not sure exactly what's on the page. I know personally I've received like $35,000 in interest for that particular campaign so far. And it should be, and it'll, just educate everyone. It should be live next Thursday or Friday of next week.
Well, congratulations on your success as well as your upcoming platform. With that said, you've all had some experience so far with the crowdfunding process. What has been the thing that has surprised you most as you enter the crowdfunding realm? Yeah.
I'd like to start with that. So in-person conversations go much further than emails, texts, kind of reaching out, just bumping into people and then say, oh, I've been meaning to talk to you. And that'll lead to a sizable investment just because they happen to see me in person. So I try to get out to events like this, run into people that, you know, ordinarily would see my social media post or would see my email blast, and just kind of push it to the side. That in-person one-on-one experience really leads to a lot of people that are putting some heavy dollars into the company.
And I'll actually back that up because I've known Ish for
7 years.
25 years, no, 30 years almost. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta I gotta invest. And then I saw him today on my to-do list. I was like, I'm investing today because I saw him. So that in person, seeing somebody to remind you is 100% correct. Anything else that you've surprised about that has surprised you about the crowdfunding process?
There are a couple of things because I'm a minority woman-owned business. So my experience with crowdfunding is very different from like a fintech founder or like something like the tech or softwares and all those. So I have a product, which is makeup. And when we start off, even though we have proof of concept and everything's incredible, mostly like I think 99% of our investors are female. And when I talk to one of the brokerage firms about raising capital, they say it's so hard to convince people to invest in women-owned businesses. I mean, unless you're like, you know, fintech or something like that, you know, so that is probably my biggest thing. And the other thing is everyone who commits doesn't come through. So don't get attached.
Yeah.
For myself, okay. So for myself, what I find both surprising and interesting is that people often are surprised that with the crowdfunding, they think that, you know, I'm just like in a suit every day or not doing it. And I'm just like, no, I'm regional manager. Like we have properties here in Chicago, multifamily, and that I'm a regional manager and very hands-on and very close to it because it is affordable housing and low income. And it requires, you know, a more in-depth level. So it surprises me when people are a little taken aback, like, wow, you really get involved with it and, you know, with the impact that we do.
That's awesome. Sareem, you mentioned that sort of as you were ending, that those who commit don't always follow through.
Yeah.
What are some, and this question is for all of you, what are some of the common objections that you hear and how do you overcome them when you're posing this investment opportunity to someone who may not have heard of you before?
You don't hear. That's what happens. You just don't hear from them. I haven't had any, I haven't had like major issues, but the way I was thinking my crowdfunding will go, especially because we're backed by Arlen Hamilton, like I mean, just that in itself is such a huge validation for the brand. I haven't gone out aggressively like seeking investors. These are people who have been customers, users, and have just come to us yet. So we haven't even started that part of like aggressively approaching. But yeah, you just don't hear from them.
Interesting. Yeah, got it.
And I'm talking about like big investors. And I'll tell you just a very small example of why I said don't get attached. There's this South Asian young, you know, multimillionaire investor. She's founder of fintech. And she has been using my products like for the last 2 years. Her mother, everybody uses my products, and she can be from the same city back home, all that, everything like kind of, it's a perfect marriage. But she was actually present there when I announced our WeFunder campaign. That day she took tons of products from me as well, because to replenish, because she was done. I haven't heard from her yet. She hasn't invested in the company. So I'm just saying, like, you can't take things too hard. Like, obviously, it does bother me that, hey, I give you like $100 or $200 worth of product. You could at least give me $50,000. But no.
That would be a fair trade. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be a fair trade.
My thing is like, you can't get attached and you can't question why or why not, because here I know somebody's a fan of my product and she's an investor. Maybe she doesn't like me, I don't know, but one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the gentleman on the panel? What are some of the objections?
I've lost a lot of potential and promises every time Beyonce goes on tour.
Oh, really? So it's I can't invest in you because I have to invest in this ticket.
And I find out by seeing the photos.
Ah, got it. They don't even tell you. You just all of a sudden see them at the concert in the front row, probably too, right? They couldn't even downgrade to invest in you and do both. I gotcha. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So for myself and for our company, as I stated before, we're new in the crowdfunding arena. However, in general, from potential investors, we don't get too many objections because this is from the accredited side, and even a few people who have called me about testing the waters. One of the objections is just like, what is it? How does it work? And so we educate, we provide transparency, and we demonstrate what we do with track record. So I'll talk about track record, answer all questions, and try to understand, what the objective is. I mean, what are they objecting to or have some trepidation about? And sometimes it's as simple as, well, I haven't sold a property yet to invest, or I haven't done anything else. And so we've had several investors, both past and present, who had objections, who then came back and says, okay, well, you know what, Dr. Van, I like what you did with this property, or I like what you did here, and we sold something. We now have some liquidity, and we're now ready to move forward.
So, did you have
I was just going to share one more example, because I think raising capital is such an intimidating thing. If you asked me like a year ago, I had no idea what that even means. Like I know what that means, but I didn't know like what it takes to be in that position. And people often talk about how to prepare your brand for a capital raise. I think for every industry, for every person, it looks different. So you can't really compare your brand or your services to other people. So last year, right when we were getting ready to figure out how we're going to raise capital, this is around like September, there's this one female founder and investor that I had a long conversation with, and just to like get information how I should be approaching this. And she said to me, don't even think about raising capital until you have 1 million in revenue, right? So intimidating for a company that's making nothing, because we're growing the brand and beauty is like a money pit. So I think this was like September, October. Obviously, it was very discouraging. I took a day and then I was like, screw this, sorry, this is bad, but whatever. I'm like, this is just one person who's saying that, not knowing anything about what the industry is really like. And by January, I got the call from Arlen, and she invested. And I think by February, I had raised $100,000. So I just feel like you have to believe in yourself. And I know it's such a loosely used term, believe in yourself, but I didn't, I've just burned all bridges. So the only way is forward. And, yeah. So that was my other learning, to just believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And I'll add one thing on top of that. Believing in ourselves, yes, we're really selling ourselves. We can't tell somebody how much their return is going to be. We can't tell them when they're going to get it. And if we do say it, it's numbers pulled out of the air. So we're really selling how confident we are in ourselves to be able to pull something through. And I think everything that she just mentioned, you're really packaging yourself to say, we can get this done with the team we have, but we do need some assistance. We've heard the same about 1 million ARR just to get in the room with an institutional investor. And it's like, okay, what's the step to get into that position to get that? And that's where a lot of crowdfunding has helped us out.
Yeah, I think I've heard that a lot, that, when you're going out and investing, especially at the crowdfunding stage, your company is great. Whatever you're doing should be, it should spark interest for investors, but mostly they have to like and know you. Like, they have to trust you. And as long as you can get that, then you're probably going to land the investment. Let me move to a point that all three of you have touched on just a bit, which is the education part, right? I did own a crowdfunding platform in the state of Illinois for a bit, so I understand the lack of education around this space. How have you incorporated incorporation into your sales strategy, if at all? Is it something that you do in-house? Is it a one-on-one conversation? Do you host weekly webinars? What does that education portion of your strategy look like?
I'll just start really quick. We held in-person as well as virtual education sessions. It was just come to learn. Like, we weren't necessarily pitching the investment piece. We were going through terminology. We were going through, this is the definition. This is how the process works. This is historically companies that have used some type of crowdfunding in the past that you know of now that you're wearing on your body, that you're driving around in, and just letting them know that this is how the startups can turn into the everyday brands. That piece right there was sort of letting them see where the future could take the company, because it's difficult to see somebody that's always, begging for a couple of $100 turning into this CEO on the cover of a Forbes magazine or something like that, but they are related.
I think education is so important in this space because this is very new to regular people like me, right? I didn't know about crowdfunding until I can launch my business and I started researching. So I think education is like, I'm constantly doing videos on my Instagram because I was an influencer before. So I have a decent following, and I'm constantly telling people that you don't need a lot of money to invest. I think that's what people think: investor, rich. No, you don't need to be wealthy to invest. You can invest as low as $100, but then you feel like a part of the business, and that education is like constant. So I feel my job right now is just raising capital. I mean, it's like a job in itself.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add to that around how you incorporate education?
Yeah, so through our website, through our past successes, I did submit some slides. I'm not sure how they'll be used or when will they appear, that illustrates exactly what we do at Proactive and also illustrates the current offering at Rancho. But it's mostly through interaction with investors. Myself, I make myself available as much as I possibly can, as well as I have investor associates that will take Calendly meetings or meet with people. And especially if people are local, I'm always happy to take them on a tour of the property and say, hey, this is what we've done across the street. This is what we like to do over here with this project. Oh, and by the way, this is what we did in South Carolina. This is what we're doing in Chicago, housing the, affordable housing, low-income housing, and really being involved in educating people on what that means, what that entails, and how do we do it so rapidly.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
The one thing I've noticed, because I do also consult startups, especially in the beauty space, is that people start connecting with investors when they want to start crowdfunding or raising capital. You have to build that relationship well in advance. Like if you just walk in and like right now I'm here and I'm like, yeah, you guys should invest. You guys should. I'm not saying you shouldn't. Yeah, like you should. But truly, like everyone who invested in my business so far, I've known them on social media or through conventions or through like webinars or whatever for a couple of years. So they knew my name. They've seen the brand grow. So like I said, the 165-year raise was like a breeze. And now I haven't raised anything because it's hard. So now I have to like put myself out there and convince people about the brand, etc. So yeah, I think you have to start early.
We've talked a lot about sort of the pre-investment. How do you attract those who are not yet investors? I will say one of the things that I dislike the most about crowdfunding, which is not a lot because I'm in the space, but I have invested in a number of companies, and once I make that investment, it goes radio silent, like no updates. That I know, right? Maybe I'm making the wrong investments. I need to be better with the Devon's group and using those recommendations. But in any case, to that end, what are some of the things that you do post investment for those who have invested to possibly get them to invest again, and or now you can reach out to their network to identify new investors? What are some of the strategies or tactics that you use post-investment to keep those investors engaged, if anything?
So for myself, I and my team have reached out. And so a small disclaimer, on our previous fund, we had like maybe 12 to 15 investors, which is, fairly manageable. So some of my investors would call me up, or I talked to them, especially during COVID, because we had 100% rent collection during COVID, because we are affordable housing. So we didn't have that issue that maybe a Class A would have or a Class B property. In fact, in South Carolina, we received about $400,000, for our residents. For each individual resident was able to get 18 months of rental assistance. And so we were able to create a lot of homeowners. We were able to, really improve the park. And I was able to call and talk to my investors because, as you know, a lot of us were, kind of shut in, although I was still in my office working. And so, Mr. Epstein, Mr. Walton, Mr. Sackley, all of the people, my large investors and small, I'd give them a call or they called me up and they'd be like, well, Van, how's it going? Or, what's going on? Or I said, well, I'm going to send you a newsletter. Well, I'd just rather talk to you on the phone. I said, that's fine, sir. And, that's how we kind of kept everybody informed. And when we made a big exit, they were really informed. So we were able to call and say, we're returning capital. We're paying your quarterly payment. So for a lot of our investors, to answer your question, just a really good level of engagement, and not just to talk about, investment and that sort of thing. So like I have a doctorate degree in psychology. I'll be real quick. I have a doctorate degree in psychology. And so because of that, I'm naturally, I listen a lot more, than the average person. So I have a couple of investors who's called me and says, hey, I've been going through this and going through that. So we'll just talk about anything but investment. And I'll say, well, by the way, this is going good. Oh yeah, I'm not worried about that. I got my payment. So, and then they just go into the next thing. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we learned early on to keep them updated. Whatever progress we were making, any moves we were making, luckily my co-founder and I, we've been involved in a lot of different things individually as well as a team. So we'll keep them up to date. Hey, we just started this program. Hey, we're working with Devin on doing this in-person thing in Chicago, just letting them know every chance that we get to invest the brand and invest their investment, that's what they're getting out of it. So sorry to whoever you invested in that didn't keep you in the loop. Sometimes it's a incident where they don't have a lot of good stuff to say. Sometimes they're so busy that they're not thinking about cultivating that relationship. But a lot of these investment relationships that we have, they span over a year, they span over 2 years. And some of them were reading the updates before they decided to put in on it. So we keep an investor list, we keep a potential investor list, we keep a partnership list. They get a version of our update. So those that haven't put the money in, we're sort of nudging them along and say, hey, look, we're still running, we're still kicking, we still got these things going on, it's still going well. And eventually some of them move from one column to the next because they've seen those updates.
So using your updates as an investor attraction method or medium. Okay, awesome.
I'm approaching it a little differently. Yes, we are sending the email. We don't have a newsletter because, like I said, we have like maybe 24, 25 investors. It's just like everybody who invested, it was just bigger amounts. But the one thing that I do, because my product is probably different, is I update my LinkedIn with everything that's happening with the brand. It goes on my socials also. Everything, like, for example, we just got accepted into this really prestigious incubator program that's going to next year try to launch us in Sephora, Ulta, and a couple of Credo, whatever other stores. So that in itself was such a huge news that I took the time to email all the investors and even people who may invest, future investors, or just in general. But I think through LinkedIn, I've been getting a lot of attention because that's like kind of like my portfolio in a way. Like, hey, we did this, we're working on this. So that is something that we should be using. I think it's worked for me.
So to make it easier to provide updates to your clients, maybe keep a running updates for yourself.
Yes.
And if you can do that in a public medium, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, because you're attracting the new customer or new investors, and you're validating the ones who have already invested, and you're kind of telling the people who didn't invest.
Got it.
Still have time to invest.
Yeah, awesome. Devin, the timer, I'm not sure how much time I have left. I want to make sure that
4 hours.
I'll use it all. I will use it all if I have it.
We have about 10 minutes to go. 12 minutes.
Okay, folks. Yeah. Did it go there? It did. Good. What's the phrase?
Good conversation.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
We're having so much fun. Okay. So before I get to sort of this final point, can you tell me what has been the most difficult part of this crowdfunding process? Not necessarily something that surprised you. You probably maybe knew it was coming, but it's been sort of an obstacle that you've been either able to overcome or you're still working to overcome. What are those difficult parts for you?
I mean, I think that nothing different than what I've already mentioned. Like I'm learning. For me, it's hard because I'm a woman-owned, minority-owned business, woman of color. And just before you're so confident about everything and people, and I feel I'm just learning so much about myself, that how resilient I am as a founder, how hard it is to get money from someone, even if they know you or they believe in your product. So it's about like your self-confidence that I feel I'm constantly trying to like rework every day. Because every day I'm shut down by something. Some days it's awesome. And then some days, it's just like, you're like, am I doing this right? You question yourself, you question your journey. So, and pretty much basic, like it's hard.
The whole thing. Fundraising is hard.
Fundraising is hard. Yeah.
I'll say I've got to have the confidence of like a 5-year-old that just got their training wheels off and just like, I'm just going to speed down this hill and see what happens.
Yeah.
We're building a marketplace which advisors will say is difficult. We're dealing with parents, which advisors will say is difficult. I'm a minority. I am a male. I'm dealing with parents where it's a lot of female and white women that we're trying to cater to. So a lot of cases where people are like, that's probably going to be a difficult trek. So it's like, okay, I keep hearing it's difficult, but I've committed. Speeding down this hill, we're going to do this. And every time we have a milestone, another hurdle will pop up where it's like, okay, they did say this was going to be difficult. So that milestone becomes another thing that we have to kind of tuck together and jump over. So we've hit a point where we're considering it a success that we're still building. Like we're just looking at that everyday success because we're still here, because we know we're fighting an uphill battle trying to get this done, trying to raise money. The industry out there, the timing, a lot of people that lost investments before that would ordinarily would have jumped in on this. They don't have it, and we can't do anything about that. So we've got to get shifty. We've got to get gritty and try to pull it out of people.
Anything that's been difficult or an obstacle that you've overcome or still dealing with?
Yes.
Or is it all easy and sunshine and roses and rainbows?
No such thing. But I have faith, and so I know for a fact that faith without works is dead. So for me, it has been a bit of timing, just working another offering into our family of funds that we have, and occasionally that can be it's surmountable, no question about that. However, it can be a flight, it can be timing, it can be I'm holding a phone and I'm at the stoplight having a meeting. So, I had an assistant and then I had to switch horses in the middle of the thing because my assistant went to Brazil. And so by the grace of God, here comes someone else who was with me in the very beginning. And so things have really started to even out. So timing can be, as everyone knows, timing can be different.
Don't try to raise around election time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another thing.
And delayed flights. Delayed flights will get you every time because it just changes the trajectory of your whole schedule.
Yeah.
So timing is important. That can be one of those obstacles where, you just got to get through it.
Yes.
What I'd like for you all to address is sort of what is it that you want people who are listening to leave with, to remember about either your experience, your campaign, your company, your raise. What is it that you hope people remember after listening to you speak today?
Well, the first thing is like when I talk about on my social media platforms, I never talk about like how well we're doing in terms of revenue or how much we've raised, because at the end of the day, it's just numbers for people who are listening. It's more about to talk. I try to focus more on like my journey or who I was, because I think that's just so much more relatable. So I always say I was a mom who started a business in my basement during postpartum depression. And that was my journey with makeup. Started exactly 10 years ago. Didn't know anything about makeup and sitting here. So, and now I'm crowdfunding. I think it's a bigger part. Like just crowdfunding is not just like one thing. It's attached to so many things and it's like a whole snowball effect. So you just have to start. You can't think about like how much we need, where we're going to go. Even if it's like you raise a little or a lot, you just keep moving. Yeah.
That's a really good point.
For those that don't subscribe to King's Crowd or Crunchbase or read Forbes about a lot of the different companies that are on their way to their exits, and you only see the headlines saying this company just sold for this many billion, this company just sold for this company got acquired. The happiest people when those headlines comes out are the seed investors. And that's what we're trying to create with the crowdfunding, is the seed investors. So we're trying to create that correlation between companies that have done well over 10, 15 years and where we are in year 3.
I think that is a really good point. I think a lot of people see the celebration at the end and don't see the struggle and the hard work to get there. It's like, I was a 15-year overnight success, right? When you see these $30 million exits or $1 million exits or whatever it is, what do you want people to remember, Dr. Van?
Yes, ma'am. I like them to remember, well, we're on Silicon Prairie. We'll be live. However, the importance of affordable housing and social impact. People overlook that all the time, and it doesn't matter what class you are, what your social economic class is, it affects everyone, and that people not ignore it, that social impact, affordable housing is a necessity, and when people need housing, they need shelter, they need housing security, and they need to be able to thrive. And statistics show that when those factors are in place, that, crime statistics are much lower, poverty is much lower. Our kids who go to school with other kids who have housing security. It's very important.
Fantastic. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know if there are any questions in the audience for any of our panelists. Is there something burning that I just did not touch on? Do you feel like their full experience has been outlaid and you're ready to make an investment because all are either raising or about to raise? Just saying. You haven't made any choices yet. Yes, Devin.
I wonder, I think we've gotten lots of little clues about their businesses from each of them. Would it be a waste of time to ask them to give us like a 90-second overview of their companies?
Because I take for granted that I read up on the panelists, but some people may not have. So yes, could you please provide your 30-second elevator pitch? I know you're used to doing it. You've probably done it 3 times, 5 times, 15 times today already. So yeah, let's go. Let's get that business overview.
I'll go first. My name is Dr. Kenny Van Williams of the Proctor Realty Income Funds and Rancho Affordable Living, LLC. Rancho Affordable Living, we are a Reg CF offering that's coming out. We're affordable housing and social impact. We provide housing in the multifamily, manufactured home space, and SRO space, which means single room occupancy. And think of those people who need a second chance at housing, people who are trying to get back on their feet, people who may have Section 8, may be veterans, may have vouchers, and those that need affordable housing. And we do that in several states now, and we'll be expanding to Indiana soon. So currently we're in South Carolina, we're in Nevada, and we're in here, Chicago, Illinois. We have a pretty fair presence.
Thank you.
My name is Ismail Elmin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Piggyback Network for parents that drive on a regular basis to school, after school activities. We match them with other parents, other local driving parents in their same area with overlapping driving routes so that they can form carpools. So we're available right now on WeFunder. Our campaign's been open, and looking forward to any questions, anything like that. We do have a pitch deck and the information for today's event.
I'm going to be a customer soon. I told them I was like, I have to rush to pick up my son. So, hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina Shah. I'm the CEO and founder of a cosmetic brand called Sabrina's Vanity. And the Sabrina's Vanity was founded to elevate South Asian representation in the beauty space. There are 2.1 billion South Asian people around the world. We love to procreate. So, but not in the beauty space. So when I was an influencer, I was a makeup artist, an influencer for 5 years. I saw the white space. I started my journey. We launched in 2022. We were on QVC our first year. We have been contacted by Shark Tank. We're recording later this year. We are in an incubator program with Tower 28. It's a very prestigious program, and all the who's who of the industry is coaching us and, working on our branding right now. And yeah, and I was self-funded until this January. So I had a proof of concept with my own investments, and now we're on B Funder under Submarine's Vanity, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. Well, I hope you got some good insight from this panel. I know that I did. It was some good new information, as well as some support for some ideas I already had. So let's take the time to thank our panelists for their time and their expertise. And back to you.